I'm going to ask you a few questions about your experience with small business. And for the purposes of today's talk, we'll define a small business as an independently owned and operated organization with under 1,000 employees. So go ahead and raise your hand if you are one of those businesses. Who here today owns a business? Oh, all right, more than I thought. I'd say that's maybe 40% of the audience. How about those who have ever had an idea for a business? It doesn't need to be a good one, just any idea. All right, excellent. I'd say another 40, 50%. And finally, who here has ever shopped at a small business, made a purchase? I think it's safe to say that's about 100% of our audience. All right. Well, what if the businesses behind each of those raised hands could be forces for climate action? They can be. And the key is in those businesses' operations, the everyday practices and decisions that shape how a business delivers value to its customers. Things like how your product is produced and where your team works and how they get there, the steps service providers take to deliver their service to their customers, even how we plan for the future. Now you might be saying, well, Kathryn, that's very nice. But what is my local pizza joint or the handy person who just put up my medicine cabinet? How are they possibly going to have an impact in the face of a crisis so global and so massive? And the truth is, alone, they can barely move the needle. But the greater truth is that we are not alone. There are over 33.2 million small businesses in the US today. And globally, that number is much bigger, estimated to be near 400 million. And it is through the sheer volume of individual impacts multiplied by millions that small business owners can be a meaningful part of the climate solution. Now, I'm one of those millions of small business owners, but before that, I worked in corporate. I worked for a very big company. And in 2021, I walked away with no plan. People thought I was wild. But the truth is, I was burnt out badly. And I was really angry, as my loved ones and some of my friends who are here today can attest to. I was sick and tired of seeing the money that I generated, which, I'm good at my job. I'm a business person. It wasn't insignificant, being used for things that didn't make sense to me. Now we're talking about companies that proudly made statements about how sustainable they were going to be. And it wasn't just limited to environment, social issues as well. Companies that happily slapped their logos on some of the biggest pride celebrations in the country. Yet, despite this, they consistently maxed out their donations to politicians who were actively working against these matters. So, like I said, I quit. And I was determined to find a better way to work. I knew it didn't need to be that way. And that led me to starting my own company, using the skills I already had, because I wanted to own not just how I earned money, but what that money went on to do in the world. So today, I own a operations and growth consultancy. We mostly help other small business owners improve their operations and grow their businesses, as you might guess. Things like helping a solopreneur improve their ops and make them more efficient so that they can take their first vacation in 3 years. Or helping another small business bring an idea for a new service to life and to market. I have never felt closer to my climate values in how I work. And that is because of the power of small business decision making. If we, as small business owners, as small scale entrepreneurs, uncover a change that can make a positive impact on our lives and on our businesses, we can just make it. We don't have to wade through layers and layers and layers and layers of stakeholder buy-in to get things done. We don't have to worry about balancing what is good for our business and world long-term with shareholders demanding profit this quarter. And we don't have to steer enormous teams to get things done. Warren Buffett has actually called out that small businesses are uniquely well equipped to move quickly for this very reason. And this power of small business decision making gets even better when we align the decisions that we make with what matters to us as humans, who also happen to be business owners. So today we're going to take some time to learn from local Pacific Northwest entrepreneurs who have started businesses and in doing so embraced their decision-making power and shaped their businesses so that they are tools for positive climate impact. First up, we have Aaron. Aaron is the force behind Oregon Sports News and Oregon Kid, a parenting resource. When Aaron started his business, he chose that his employees, his entire team, would be and stay remote. Now, as you can imagine, this is a major cost saver, and to those who have started businesses in the room, cost savings are fantastic, especially at the beginning. But this has the added benefit for both Aaron's business and the rest of us of being a major reducer of greenhouse gas emissions, up to 50% per office employee. Now, there are some businesses where you simply must go to the office or to your studio. So let's learn from Casey and Rosanna, who started Muscles and Heart Fitness Lab, another local business. Their services help customers get into peak shape, total body conditioning, reach maximum performance through the lens of the healing arts. Some of their services, and these are real photos from their business, are things like bodywork, massage. Again, you really need to be in person for that. If someone can figure out a way to deliver this through the internet, please let me know. And they realized that their commute to their studio did not need to work against the climate solution. So when they must commute, they choose to do so by bike or hybrid car. And they've also got creative, finding as many ways as possible to deliver their services virtually, offering virtual coaching and also on-demand programs when they can. They've also taken steps to ensure that how they deliver their services, in person or not, reduce their climate impact. For example, taking steps to reduce the need for laundry within their studio, saving not just on resources like water and energy, and it's not quite a resource, it's the opposite of that, but microplastics that end up in our water streams, but also saving costs. Another business that has shaped how they deliver their offering in a way that is positive for climate impact is Friday Outdoors. Started by Lycea, this organization, company, an app, aims to make camping more accessible for beginners. Lycea has been passionate about climate long before she became a founder. And so she set out with intention when she started this app to incorporate sustainability throughout, helping campers be both more sustainable and camp with more care for the environment. Now, one of this app's features are instructions to build a campfire that are available offline. If you've ever camped, especially maybe up on chilly Mount Hood in the spring or fall, that's an important thing to know. It's nice to get cozy around a fire. But these instructions do double duty. They also help campers minimize the impact of their campfires, the environmental impact. And as you may know, living in the Northwest, as the severity of wildfires, both here and around the globe, increases, you can imagine the impact that this simple act of more robust instructions that also include tips for environmental impact might have. And lastly, I want to give an example from my own business, as I mentioned, a growth and operations consultancy. Now, outside of work, I am very passionate about shopping pre-owned. In fact, almost everything I'm wearing today was not purchased new. So, when I needed to buy a new desk and other office equipment, I did not go to IKEA or Amazon, although I was tempted. Instead, I turned to my community, where I was able to score a gorgeous hardwood desk and a beautiful antique upholstered office chair for $25. And I didn't stop there. I also purchased a refurbished phone and computer. And the carbon that devices like this that are refurbished create when that we buy them is 90% lower than purchasing brand new. There's so many other ideas out there. For example, if you're a business that depends heavily on vendors, like a restaurant, you can choose to prioritize those who actively, in turn, work to prioritize climate action within their own business. You can also go paperless. My mechanic did this recently, and I loved it. It was a much better customer experience and a massive carbon and greenhouse gas emission saver, not just in the production of paper and the shipping of paper, but also by keeping paper out of landfills where it decomposes and releases greenhouse gases, or entering recycling, which, although is better, still requires energy. And finally, if it's time for a little team building within your team, you could head to your local ropes course or something like a bowling alley. And as fun as that is, why not instead take your team and join a local greening initiative, like community gardening, planting trees in underserved communities, or as I just learned about, depaving. Now, these examples are just a drop in the bucket of possibility, but they can teach us a few things. First off, we can have a climate impact without a climate-focused product. And part of what drove me to enter into business for myself is that I tried to get into the climate industry. And even pivoting and taking on the exact same role, but at a climate-focused team, I was told I wasn't the right fit because I didn't have the background. So I believed because I didn't have the background and skills needed to create a climate-focused product, my business couldn't have a climate impact. As we've seen here, definitely not the case. Next, simple changes can reduce carbon footprints and costs. None of the changes that we discussed today are, as you might say, rocket science. These are all pretty straightforward. We don't need to be experts or have amazingly innovative ideas to have a positive impact. And finally, it feels really, really good when how we run our businesses aligns to what matters most to us as people. Now, of course, there are some limitations. For example, businesses that rely on something like an opaque and often vast supply chain might find that aspect of their business harder to optimize for climate than others. And if you plan to start the next small petrochemicals company, don't. Some businesses are simply beyond help. And we also have to acknowledge that in order to truly overcome the climate crisis, the scale of action must be global, sweeping, massive, collective. And that is really hard. But as business owners, we can multiply our impact and expand it outside of our businesses by serving as role models for others, other small businesses, our customers, our large corporate competitors, and as President Obama has said, even our government. Now, perhaps you're still not convinced, so let's do a little math, one of my favorite activities. I'm serious, by the way. So if a single small business took just some of the actions that we outlined today, it's reasonable that they could reduce their carbon footprint by 1,000 kilograms of carbon per year. When we multiply that by the number of small businesses in the US, 33.2 million, we get powerhouse level impact. So, I would like together to take a moment, collectively, as this group, to take a step towards unleashing the power of small business operations for climate action. So go ahead and bring a small business that you're familiar with to mind. And if you don't own this business, put yourself in the shoes of that business owner. Imagine that you have the power to implement change today within that business. What is that business's product or service or offering? And what are the steps needed for that product to go from idea to reaching the hands of customers? Now, what is one action you as a business owner can take today that would improve the climate outlook? Doesn't have to be a big one. And now imagining that you have made that change and are starting to realize the carbon savings. How does it feel looking back to know that you've been a small part of the collective solution? Whether you own a business or not, the one thing I want you to leave today's talk with is that it's not about reinventing what you do. It's about reimagining how you do it. Thank you.